Hi, I'm Alan Pollock, and I'm here with Andrew Buckley to talk today about hit and run history. Glad to be here with you, Andrew.
Right. Thanks, Alan.
Tell me how this series is a little unique.
Hit and Run History started off originally as a book trailer, or a series of book trailers following the story of the Columbia expedition, which is the first American voyage around the world. We were trying to get away from the long format style documentary of telling a story and instead maybe go for broadcast, pace it more like Anthony Bourdain's No Reservations show.
The series has been well received so far.
People love short, punchy biographies, and we're able to do that for some of the what we call the supporting cast. A lot of the backers of the Columbia expedition, including people like John Derby of the Derby family of Salem that started the China trade, Charles Bulfinch, who designed the State House in Boston and such, and how they were all connected. And we kind of daisy-chained this series of 10 together. That got a great reception. And with a web format, it's got to be very punchy, and 10 minutes is an eternity online, but 5-8 minutes, we found a way to be able to tell it just right in a story that really travels around the world.
This is a story that a lot of people are unfamiliar with, and one that has a lot of local ties.
The commander of the expedition, John Kendrick, grew up on the shores of Pleasant Bay, just up the shore here. He was a privateer during the Revolutionary War and had moved around from Orleans, Harwich, Pleasant Bay area to Edgartown, then finally Wareham, and then led this expedition, which was a private trading venture to go from the United States, the young United States of 1787. We had nothing the world wanted necessarily, but it was Yankee ingenuity. It was what Cape Codders are good at.
Why do you suppose people were drawn to support a project like this?
Well, I think first of all, it's a story that most people don't know. It's very engaging. It's really as much a story about the individuals, because we're not talking about a great migration of people or large armies crossing the globe. We're talking about less than 50 or 40 guys on 2 boats that easily both of them would fit in the frame behind us here. They're really quite small, and they got on each other's nerves. Most of these guys were, I don't know, 19, 20 years old, and they've been tasked with going to the other side of the earth and making as much money as they possibly can for the owners, and they're given the most modern vessels and modern weaponry and libidos of 19 or 20-year-old boys. So it's an adventure too. It's a great adventure fraught with all sorts of dangers, and they encountered all of them.
This journey is bringing you to the Falkland Islands. I think when the average person thinks about the Falklands, they think about what happened in 1982. Tell me what your experience was like out there.
People oftentimes wouldn't even know where we were going. They would say islands. Sometimes they thought it was somewhere off the Canadian Maritimes or something like that. And we're really talking about 300 miles east of Cape Horn, way down near the subarctic. It was like the Lord of the Rings. And I don't mean storyline. I mean that there really are no trees there to speak of. It's very, very, very windy. It's a rather isolated place, but it's a collection of islands that's roughly about the size of Connecticut, population of about 3,000, most of whom are in Port Stanley. And our story took us to the far western Falklands, which are pretty remote, to a place called Saunders Island, where the Columbia came in February of 1788, and they were pondering staying there for the winter or not.
What were some of the production challenges you had working in an environment like that?
Well, I mean, one of the first things problems we encountered was we didn't have cell phone service. Internet access is by one company there. It's rather slow, and they're rather parsimonious with their bandwidth. And so just being able to keep in touch with people was very, very hard. And finally we just had to cut the cord, take the bush plane out to Saunders Island, and we were there with no phone, no internet, for days on end, and it was completely gorgeous. I mean, that island is about the size of the city of Boston. It's got a population of 6, and with several thousand sheep and many, many, many penguins.
So I understand you ran into some troubles when you were down there and ended up staying a little longer than you anticipated.
Well, Lon Airlines, which brought us down there, flies only to the Falklands once a week. It's the only commercial airline, in or out, and due to fog, we couldn't fly off Saunders Island in time to get back to the international airport and the flight home. And so it was interesting to see the different culture differences where we look at the water and we see it as a method to get from one place to another instead of an impediment. And that's what we were faced with at the time. It created its own challenges, but it also had benefits as well, because we were able to talk to more historians during that particular week, make great friends with the Falkland Islands radio service that's there, and Falkland Islands TV. and again, met a lot of good people who were very, very kind to us. And when we left, we certainly had learned a lot more than just having been there 1 week.
So where will this adventure bring you next?
We're going to be taking a cruise around Cape Horn with Cruceros Australis, and that will leave from Ushuaia, Argentina, which is the southernmost city in the world, and we'll be going all the way down to the very end of the earth, as they call it, Cape Horn, and then back to Punta Arenas, and along the way we'll be stopping in Buenos Aires in Argentina, and Santiago, Chile as well. And so we'll be able to talk to historians along the way, and the way we do, to be able to make the story more accessible. And we'll also be bringing along GBH's kids series called Through My Eyes, so that they can also tell their story, which is not our story, but to be able to bring two little girls down and put them in a Zodiac boat and aim them at 10,000 penguins, that's going to be great as well. And so, because we have our professional camera crew along with us, the production values of that will be great as well. And eventually we're going to be moving on to the northwest coast, then on to Hawaii, and then on to China and Japan. And so it's a story that spans the globe, and we're following it just like a adventure travel show, rather than your typical dry documentary.
Hit and Run History returns to WGBH with our next chapter in the story of the Columbia Expedition. Follow us on Facebook by searching for Hit and Run History.